Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax Guys. You'll notice I've changed locations.
Yes, it looks like you're going up there to see the Northern Lights, but you're actually in the Northern Lights.
Yeah, well, last week I was in Florida, and on the date that this program streams, which is going to be August 2nd, I will be in Alaska. So we're recording this a bit ahead of time, but since I'm actually going to be in Alaska as of the time that this program streams at 8 o'clock Eastern on our FAIRtax official Facebook page, I'll be in Alaska. So I figure we'll just do my Alaska background.
That's nice. Hey, it's a good one. Watch out for that meteor.
One more. Oh, and one more thing that we really need to mention here, first week of August, and kind of wish you didn't have to, but we really should. That exactly a year ago,
this week,
first Tuesday, the first Tuesday in August last year, which was the 3rd. This show streaming on the 2nd. Last year it was the 3rd. That was the last FAIRtax Power Radio episode that Ron Malero and I did together.
Yeah.
So it's
and if you look behind me, you see Ron on the picture right back there.
Yeah. So we kind of don't really want to dwell on it, but we do want to mention that God, we miss that guy. But
boy,
I'm glad that you were there to step in and carry the program on forward. And as I say, a year ago was the last show that Ron Malero did. That's available on our YouTube channel if you want to go back and look at it.
Right. But, I go back and watch every once in a while. There's a couple of episodes that I really like because they generate some really solid information about the foundational benefits of the FAIRtax, and they include Ron. Because you all were together for 6 years?
I think about 6 years. And so Elaine did a couple of shows with us. Jade stepped in for a week. Steve Hayes helped out a little bit, and then you took over. So you're almost a year on the program.
Yeah,
but,
just about.
It was this time last year where we were forced into making those changes. And of course, we continue to wish Ron and his family well, and we're never going to forget you, buddy. One of the best and most enthusiastic FAIRtax supporters that God ever made.
Yeah.
All right.
And Elaine both.
One other thing, though, he used to fuss at me for taking up too much time.
Right.
Congress.gov.
Get on.
So that's where we're going now with this week's edition of Congress.gov. Again, you go to Congress.gov. Put in the phrase Internal Revenue Code, enclose those 3 words in quotes, hit the go button, and as of the date we're recording this, 1,815 hits on that search, including, this one, S4568, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to promote the increased use of renewable natural gas, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other harmful transportation-related emissions that contribute to poor air quality, and to increase job creation and economic opportunity throughout the United States. I'm thinking Hall of Shame for this one, simply because that first part, we got what in the world is the use of renewable natural gas, reducing greenhouse gas emissions and all that stuff. Why is that in the tax code? And if Senator Richard Burr from North Carolina, whose bill this is, really wants to increase job creation and economic opportunity throughout the United States, he'd help support and get the FAIRtax passed. But he's trying to do that through the income tax instead of the FAIRtax, so he goes in the Hall of Shame.
Well, and he's retiring. He's our one of our 2 senators who happens to be from Winston-Salem.
Oh, is he?
Mr. Burr, yes, sir.
I thought he was out on the Outer Banks, but for some reason. Okay.
Here, good old Winston-Salem boy.
Well, of course, senators represent the whole state, so it's
right.
Not like this.
Yeah, we have 2. Tom Tillotson is the other one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Senator Burr, one of his final hurrahs is he wants to increase job creation and economic opportunity throughout the United States through the income tax code rather than supporting the FAIRtax. And the fact that he's retiring means maybe we can get whoever his replacement is to support the FAIRtax.
There are a few good. There were a few good candidates on both sides leading into the primaries, and we'll see how all that goes. Of course, open seats are always exciting because you have many people on both sides of the political aisle that are vying for that seat. So, But
Yeah, that's true.
the thing is if you talk about economic stimulus and job creation and things like that, can you imagine a business not having to put up with all of the wherewithal and the details of running their tax compliance department?
Yeah, not having to pay tax attorneys, not having to pay at least for the CPA service for taxes, that the CPA can do other things for them, but won't have to deal with their tax. What could you do if your business didn't have to deal with a tax code? Wow, that's a thought. But anyway, that's what.
Always go back to the psychological part of it too. If your brain is not encumbered with numbers and compliance and all of this, and yes, you might be paying somebody to do some of that, but some of the small business owners don't have that luxury, so they're having to pile that on top of their already busy, to-do list, a checklist on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. And if you took that whole compliance thing away, how great it would be in terms of innovation at the small business level.
Okay. Well, we got a couple of fairly similar bills actually from the same sponsor. This one's from here down in Florida. Representative Brian Mast, Florida District 18, has introduced both H.R. 8414 and 8413. 8413 is the Reduce Taxes on Our Trucks Act. And there is a little bit of text in that says to amend the Internal Revenue Code to repeal certain excise taxes on heavy trucks at retail. And the H.R. 8414, Relief for Our Truckers Act, is to amend the Internal Revenue Code to repeal the federal excise tax on diesel fuel.
Well,
have I got you totally dumbfounded with those?
Yeah, it's the gas prices, diesel or regular gasoline today is fluctuating a little bit. As we know, the summertime the gas has always been a little bit higher because of some restrictions on how the gas is actually made, and
yeah,
I can't imagine a tax code being the place for something like that to be having its beginnings.
I'm seeing knee-jerk reactions here. Gas price, diesel prices, especially, at least here in Florida, are still over $5 a gallon.
Yeah.
The federal tax is like 24 cents off of $5 a gallon. That's a lot of relief there, isn't it? But anyway, now when the taxes are high and people are having a hard time getting it, they say, oh, let's just repeal the tax on it. But then later on, when those taxes are, no longer in the coffers and you can't fix the roads, why can't we get our roads fixed? We need more tax money from these folks. It just goes from one extreme to the other.
Right. That's right.
This one, I'm almost about ready to put this one in the Hall of Shame as well, because I looked at this and said, what? This is H.R. 8399. Again, from one of your North Carolina guys. This is Madison Cawthorn's bill, Republican North Carolina 11. He said H.R. 8399 to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to repeal the National Firearms Act. And I looked at that and said, what? You can repeal a different act of Congress by changing the tax code?
Yeah, I'm like, what the heck? Of course, Madison's, I think he got primaried out. He won't be on the ticket this fall.
Well, I'm not sure. But anyway, I said, how in the world can changing the tax code repeal the National Firearms Act? So I looked it up on Wikipedia. The National Firearms Act was actually enacted in June of 1934 and is currently codified as amended as Internal Revenue Code Chapter 53. So they have taken an entire act of Congress and embedded that whole thing in the tax code. So now I see how amending the tax code, where they've put this other act, they want to get rid of it, so you have to amend the tax code to do that. I said, why didn't you just, pass another law repealing that code?
Repeal it.
Because all of the code that makes up the National Firearms Act has been embedded in the Internal Revenue Code, Chapter 53. That's got to be one of the craziest insanities I've run across here at Congress.gov ever.
I'd vote for that one being in the Hall of Shame as opposed to the previous one. That one's really messed up. That's just messy. That's gonna. you pull that thread and it's going to be like, it's going to be whatever that was, it's going to take forever to get that thing unraveled.
I just, of course, this makes you wonder if the National Firearms Act, apparently a separate act of Congress that passed in June of 1934, is currently embedded in the Internal Revenue Code. What other laws are in there?
All of them, it appears, or some of them, or a few of them, or at least referenced to, and for other purposes, of course.
Well, this says that the National Firearms Act in general imposes an excise tax on the manufacture and transfer of certain firearms, mandates registration of those firearms. So they're trying to get rid of that. It's all embedded in the Internal Revenue Code. That's a first. And yeah, I think I'll put that one in the Hall of Shame as long next to the next one. But that's
put them all in there.
That's one of the crazier crazies that I've been able to come up with in Congress.gov, that an entire act of Congress is embedded in the Internal Revenue Code. I guarantee you there's no other country anywhere on the face of the earth that has that same issue.
That's crazy. Just crazy stuff, man.
Oh.
And we bring this up every week at Congress.gov when we do the segment, when Bob researches all of this. It's to show how absolutely dysfunctional the whole income tax thing is and how distorted it's become. Our representatives, all of them, you just mentioned a representative for North Carolina and one of our senators using the tax code to do this, whatever they're trying to get done. And how insane is that? Again, you know, you want to keep things simple and nice and easy and fair.
Yes.
Income tax, get rid of.
Let's get rid of the entire Internal Revenue Code, including the National Firearms Act that's embedded therein, and replace it all with the FAIRtax. That's just
well, it brings up another question is, you know, what happens to all of the things that are connected to the tax code when you don't have that tax code anymore?
That would be interesting. So let's move on here to our main subject on today's FAIRtax Power Radio show.
This is a great one too. I'm excited.
This is going to be a good one because I'm not even going to guess how long ago, but it was a good little while ago. Steve Hayes wrote a chairman's report that he got a lot of numbers out of opensecrets.org. That's, of course, a place anybody can go.
Their slogan is following the money in politics.
Yes, so he was trying to follow the money and come up with some astounding numbers on how much money is spent on lobbying.
Yeah.
And so it's been a while since we've gone through those numbers. Let's look at it again. So if you go to opensecrets.org, if you type in the word lobbying into their search function, you'll get back a list of things. And one of the things right at the top of the list is lobbying data summary, Open Secrets. And you open that thing up, and there we can spend a lot of time digging in this thing. But this shows you
where it's happening. This is the website and the section, the lobbying section, federal lobbying. It's a business all its own. There's probably a college or university class all across the country where you figure out they teach you how to do this. This is unbelievable.
It was amazing. There's way more stuff here than we're going to be able to get to here in just the 15 minutes we've got left on the show. But one of the interesting things I looked at on the left side of this page is various different topics you can get into. And I opened up the one that said top spenders.
Yeah.
What organizations, what businesses, what industries are spending the most on lobbying? And I was kind of surprised to see the U.S. Chamber of Commerce at the top of the list. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, so far in 2022 anyway, and these numbers are low compared to the other years because we're only halfway through this Congress. I'm sure by the time the end of Congress comes around next year, they'll be in line with everything else. But so far, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has spent $19,060,000 on lobbying.
Wow. And the U.S. Chamber Institute for Legal Reform, the Center for Capital Markets Competitiveness, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Global Intel Proposition, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Technology Engagement Center. These are all subcategories, subsidiaries of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
Mhm.
They represent small businesses, supposedly, and interests of people like me, my company, for example.
Mhm.
$19 million.
Yep. And
Wow.
National Association of Realtors, the second top spender at $12,190,000.
Yeah, it's just amazing, just unbelievable. And we
You
talk
you
about
kind of
this.
expect that. You'd expect the pharmaceutical industry. They're the third, Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America. But I'd like to skip down to about number 7 of 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Meta, META. Most people will not recognize what that is. Would you
Meta.
care to enlighten them?
It's the new corporate name for Facebook and Instagram and Joe's Fish House. No, I'm just kidding about Joe's. But why would Meta, obviously a large worldwide organization, I guess there's reason for them to be lobbying Congress,
And
probably for some.
they are a top 10 spender on lobbying. They spent more than Amazon. They spent more than General Motors. They spent more than ConocoPhillips. They spent more than Northrop Grumman. All of these list folks are on the top
Yeah,
spending list.
United Parcel Service, they spent more than them. They're, but there are plenty of, there's AARP down at the bottom of the list, 3.5 million spent. How much do you think Meta spent?
Oh, I know how much Meta spent. I looked.
$5.390 million, 5.3 million, almost
Yes.
$5.4 million so far.
Right. So far. Now, if you go over here a little further and click on another one to bring open top issues versus top spenders, let's see. All right, what issues are all of these big spenders spending their money on? And kind of to bring it back to the context of the show here, taxes is third. Taxes is the third biggest issue that is lobbied in Washington, D.C. Behind federal budget and appropriations and health issues, taxes is third. And this opensecrets.org here gives you, there were 1,715 different clients lobbying on the tax issue.
Right.
Those 1,715 clients have hired 3,642 different lobbyists that are up there lobbying about taxes. And that is the second highest number of lobbyists on any particular issue, behind only the federal budget and appropriation at 3949, and taxes is 3642, not very far behind. The number of lobbyists, we look at congress.gov every week and look at some of the crazy things that come. One of those 3,642 lobbyists is behind just about every one of those propositions we look at.
Righto. And the clients that have been lobbying on taxes so far this year, out of that 1,700 or so, is Altria Group, which is a tobacco interest, at the top of the list. They have 14 reports. Intuit, tax preparation software, Verizon, Next Era Energy, British American Tobacco has been lobbying for Reynolds American, which is based out of Winston-Salem, old R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, Comcast, cable company, Anheuser-Busch, the beverage company, Business Roundtables, and Intel, T-Mobile. These are all companies that have, and they're of the records that are in this particular Open Secrets list, include iHeartMedia, for example, the big radio group. FedEx is on there, Dell Computer. And so you could actually sit down one weekend and decide, okay, well, now where in the tax code are interests of these businesses showing up? And we also have to remind you that the Open Secrets data is based on information from the Senate Office of Public Records. The most recent year was downloaded on April 22nd of this year. It includes spending from January 1st to March 31st so far. this year. So what we're reporting on is what's happened just within the first quarter of 2022.
It's amazing. Of course, you'd expect ExxonMobil, General Motors, Microsoft Corporation, the National Auto Dealers Association,
Right.
Citigroup, Dell Technologies, all of these folks are lobbying on the tax issue. And how many of these folks can we put, how many of those 3,600 and some, I got to back up a page to see what the exact number is, 3,642 lobbyists can we put out of business by getting rid of the income tax and putting in the fair? Of course, they would not necessarily go out of business. They just have to go lobby on other issues. But could you imagine 3,642 lobbyists? And that's just so far this year in this Congress, which is not even half over.
The other thing too is, and you mentioned in Congress.gov, all of these other things that are going on. And what we just showed, the tax lobbyists are just taxes, but there are some of the business things that you mentioned within Congress.gov every week include trade and Medicare and education and environment and agriculture. And those are all listed in the top issues under OpenSecrets.org's federal lobbying initiative. Reports that they pulled together, science and technology, homeland security. I mean, you can tie this entire section, not just the lobbying focus on taxes, but like you said, federal budget and appropriations. That's what we're going to spend. We need to spend more money on.
That's related to taxes.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It all is. We have the most complex tax system that provides total dysfunction for the people who are paying into it. And yet we are not necessarily represented by lobbyists. So don't go out there and represent the individuals. That's supposed to be our representative that we elect, is supposed to be representing us in these matters. Yet they're paying attention to, in some cases, more than us. All of these business interest organizations that are paying lots of money because the politicians have to work on raising money to get reelected. The minute they walk in the door after the election cycle, they've got to start raising money for the next election cycle. So
absolutely,
where are they going to get that money from? They get it from the lobbyists.
Well, you want to know something really cool here that I just discovered? I opened up the thing that said top agencies. The government is lobbying the government.
Of course.
If you open up, if it says the
Department of Health and Human Services, the White House is lobbying the
Department of Transportation, the Department of the Treasury, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Agriculture. Defense is down there at about 7th. They're at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Defense is 8. The EPA, Environmental Protection. But if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see the Federal Communications Commission, this and there. But it says they are showing you the first 25 of 198 entities within the government that are lobbying Congress. Do we have a crazy system or what?
In America. Well, it wouldn't be proper to go through this particular segment, the federal lobbying, the top agencies. Of the 198 top agencies that are lobbying the federal government, agencies being the agencies in the government, lobbying the federal government, they have their own lobbyists. It's just unbelievable.
I'm amazed that the entity that has the greatest number of lobbyists is the White House.
Of course. And
2,330 lobbyists are lobbying Congress on behalf of the White House. That is insane.
Okay, now this is going to get you because it's something near and dear to my heart as a former coastal South Carolina resident. 197th top agency lobbying the federal government is, wait for it, the Marine Mammal Commission.
Was you skipped to the end of the book?
Yes,
Huh?
I did.
All right.
And they only have 6 lobbyists. So you can imagine the coffee cooler conversations that they have is, well, I had to wait in line for Voice of America. I had to wait in line for the White House to get through with their presentation. I think I'm going to go back next week on Thursday and see if I can talk about these mammals that we're commissioning.
Well, does that include you when you go swimming in the ocean?
Well, it could be because I'm a mammal. Marine. Yeah, I'm a marine mammal. Oh my God.
Oh man. But again, all of this is just openly available to anybody who wants to go to opensecrets.org.
Not going anywhere for a while.
As I say, there is a bunch of different stuff in here, a whole lot more than we're able to get into. Here's one more: the top lobbying firms. Of course, nobody will ever know any of these. Brownstein Hyatt et al. $15,185,250 in income for their lobbying activity. These guys make a lot of money.
Yeah, they do. And you can imagine where people who retire from, say, the Senate, for example, or from the House of Representatives, they may be an attorney, and more likely more attorneys are in public service at that level, that they would probably end up being able to get a job at, they just pack up their desk, they carry their banker's box out.
Oh, absolutely.
Over to one of these lobbying firms for the rest of their career,
well,
because of all their contacts.
Former members of Congress have the contacts that the lobbyists want to have. And so that's just amazing. We should make the point that the fair tax is not going to eliminate lobbying, as an industry. There will still be plenty of lobbyists going on a lot of different issues. But if we could get rid of the income tax code, replace it with a fair tax, then that will not be the lobbying effort directed against the fair tax that is directed against the income tax, just because the nature of the beast is such that, the fair tax is just fair.
Well, that's another question.
It doesn't have all this other stuff in it. 70-some thousand pages worth of stuff. Yeah. And I guarantee, we won't have any FAIRtax Power Radio anymore. When fair tax is the law of the land, our goal will have been accomplished. But right. I guarantee if we did and looked at congress.gov every week, there would be nowhere near the number of changes proposed to the fair taxes.
Oh, unbelievable. And they and I'm writing down right now what happens to the tax code, the interworkings and all of the references to, in some cases, laws that are there. What happens to, enforceability, or what happens? Is it just a shell game, or will there actually be some repercussions to the income tax, the tax code being eliminated and just decidedly put off into the burn pile and lit on fire and over, and the 16th Amendment gone and the Internal Revenue Service gone? What complexity exists with regard to references in the tax code that we talk about each week through congress.gov? Does that bear any issue or influence or challenge to the enforceability of laws that were related to the tax code?
Who knows? But I'll tell you this: I'll be heading back from Alaska. And next week, when we meet on FAIRtax Power Radio, I'll be back here in Florida at our regular spot, and we can turn the northern lights off. But I say there's just way more in there than we can get into in our time, which has expired already here on FAIRtax Power Radio over this week. So again, we thank you so much for watching and listening. Invite you to share these videos with your friends and family. And until we meet again, I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, providing you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax. And once you understand it,
you will demand it.
So what do you need from me to get these taxes collected?
Glad you asked, because there is a fair amount of information you need to be aware of.
That's your tax plan?
Oh, no, this is just the revisions for this year's tax plan. What I need from you is you need to keep track of all of your income, as well as any taxes that you've already paid. Also, any gifts that you received or gifts you've given to churches or charities or individuals throughout the entire year. Do you do any side jobs?
Every now and again.
Great, because there's some more information about that right here. Everything you need to know right here. So just simply compile that Send it in to us. Be careful, make sure there's no mistakes. If we do find mistakes were made, we can fine you or, throw you in jail. So you might want to be aware of that.
And what do you need from me?
As an individual, nothing. As a business owner, or if you're doing side jobs, I mean, yes, you would have to collect taxes on that, but, well, it's all right here.